on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Angela and Martin.
And it's time for the newspapers. But before we do that, can I quickly blast through the fact we've got this Twitter poll running all morning. There's only 39 minutes left to go. Would you vote for Brexit again? It's been running at 80% yes, Brexit all morning. Remain Twitter has obviously woken up and got a hold of this. They're doing what they normally do. And it's swung. It's now 55% Brexit. It's getting very close to the real thing. Angela, I'm getting flashbacks of that fateful day itself. I'm getting really excited.
Calm down, Martin.
Your country needs you. I know I'm meant to be.
Calm down. You're neutral. No. Let's take a look at the front page. We've got with us, as we say, in our studio, our two reviewers. But the front pages are telling us, well, the Times at least, saying that Britain is going to mull over Swiss-style ties with Brussels as it believes that EU relations are thawing.
And that was the front page, of course, that's kicked off our Twitter poll. Meanwhile, the Observer writes that Keir Starmer will abolish the House of Lords to restore trust in politics.
And a bonfire of NHS pen pushers, says the Mail, as ministers vowing to axe red tape in the health service to save taxpayers' money.
And the Express goes with shameless as they discuss the FIFA boss's comments on human rights critics in Qatar ahead of the World Cup. There's lots and lots of spice to go at this morning, loads and loads of it. But your country needs you, says the Mirror, not only to support England, but also to get onto the GB News Twitter poll. Come on, get out there, people, and get voting. Let's get to the studio now. Fraser, you've got a classic story here. Don't say gender critical. Ministry of Justice staff warned. It sounds like more wokeism gone mad.
In the civil service of all places, who could have guessed? So essentially, staff at the Ministry of Justice have been sent this glossary of terms from their diversity and inclusion officers, saying that there are certain words and phrases that are coded and contain kind of transphobic views surreptitiously. So you shouldn't use the term gender critical, which is the term that a lot of feminists use to describe themselves when they believe in biological sex. And get this, one of the things that is also a transphobic dog whistle is saying you want to protect women and girls.
Really?
That is considered to be transphobic because then you're about to say that, you know, women should have single-sex spaces, have a right to privacy, etc., etc.
Who's come up with this?
This is from the prison service and their diversity and inclusions unit. And you know, prisons have a terrible track record when it comes to this stuff, allowing convicted rapists to share cells with women and things like that, and with the obvious consequences of what happens next.
Doesn't it sum up the world we live in now, Angela, that in 2022 the wrong position to take is to want to protect women and girls? Seriously, that's the wrong thing to do.
It's just the sheer Orwellianism of the sort of trans ideology, the woke ideology, that you shouldn't, you know, you're not even allowed to describe what is going on, you know.
I just want to know who these people are that come up with this and who they think they're offending when you say it.
Well, such a waste of money.
It is.
Such a waste of money. And this is coming out from the prison service. Now, come on, I think they've got bigger fish to fry and more things to do in there in terms of rehabilitation of offenders. And actually, the whole probation service and the prison service need, you know, a complete lockdown in terms of what they're doing, and they need to be re-educated themselves in actually how to maintain criminals in situ. I'm not interested in diversity and inclusion.
No.
No, I would like to put an end to wokeism, actually.
Good for you. Yes. Your popularity just soared in Queensland. What we're going to do now is vote for Brexit on this poll, and you'll be there. You'll be the full ticket.
Martin, stop it!
I'm just a bit too excited.
That's
not the real thing.
Got your thumb on the scale.
Stop it and let's let Claire tell us about the next story she wants to talk about.
Just stop, Martin.
I've been told off for being... I need to be neutral. I know, I am neutral. Claire.
Incredulity. That's going to make the paper review. It always does, Angela. Now, this is a story here in the Mirror from a story that was front pages yesterday. My heart goes out to Zara's family, and Zara being Zara Aline, who was murdered in horrendous circumstances and left for dead by Jordan McSweeney. Now, this is it's an article, but it's written by Jordan McSweeney's one of his ex-girlfriend's mother, and she tells of a horrendous time that her daughter had when she was going out with him. So clearly the alarm bells were there. Now let's not forget, Jordan McSweeney was released, right, on probation, on licence. He missed his probation turning. He didn't turn up to the police. The police couldn't find him. 28 counts he was being held accountable for of grievous bodily harm, sexual assault, and having under control of a knife. 2 days later, he murdered that beautiful, beautiful law graduate and left her for dead. Now, the probation service, and that makes me even more cross, that they're more concerned about diversity and inclusion, are being paid to set these things up. This is the real story. This is the real life.
Yeah.
This is what they ought to be doing. And, the police service as well, and I don't want to make it metropolitan-centric here because clearly GBNEWS is the national news outlet. But honestly, Mark Rowley has got a big job to do in terms of recruiting police, making the country safer. And I'm all for Bobby's on the beat, back in the beat, because it's proven, it's scientifically proven that if you have police officers on the beat, in the ground, working with the communities, that makes communities safer. And it was all very well for Rishi Sunak yesterday I'm probably going to trigger the woke brigade that Fraser's just spoken about, but he wants to make the streets safer for women, and he's using his children, his daughters, as a,
which is a perfectly valid thing.
Exactly.
Yes. We must move on to want to get in one quick story again. Fraser, the no deal at the climate summit. I think
there has been a deal
down the road, haven't they?
Yes. So there's been a sort of semi-deal since the papers came out. They've agreed in principle to this kind of loss and damage fund, which is essentially giving money to the developing world because they suffer the most from climate change. Is the kind of argument. But of course they've not agreed on how much money should be given. They haven't agreed who should pay because there's a dispute over whether China and India should contribute to those funds.
Of course they should.
They're developing countries, but they're now some of the biggest emitters in the world. And I think what a lot of this shows is that every time there's a COP event every year, at the beginning it's all tub-thumping rhetoric. You had the head of the UN sort of climate division saying we're going to hell we're on a highway to hell and our foot is on the accelerator. But then by the end of the summit, they never reach an agreement.
Nope.
And the reason they never reach an agreement is because it's not in any country's interest to get rid of fossil fuels.
And that's what they've done this time. They've kicked the can down the road and said that we'll tell you what we're going to do in 2020. No, 2000 and COP
next year,
COP28,
which is going to be hosted in the United Arab Emirates.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
Very environmental.
I think the COPs are a COP out.
It's a COP
but
out.
also it's the new Davos.
Yeah.
Totally. Echo Chambers. Thank you very much, Fraser. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next hour.
Is that it? No, that's it.
We're talking about all of this.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.